All right, so next I would call Christchurch International Airport Limited, Felicity Blackmore and Francois Bourdin. Good afternoon and welcome. So you have 5 minutes to present the submission this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks for hearing us today. We're actually going to break our little submission down into two. General, where we're just going to talk generally around development contributions, and then catchment areas. Look, there's no doubt that we totally agree DCs are a critical part of the city's toolkit to enable us to invest in new and upgraded public assets. I think that's without a shadow of doubt really important, whether that be local parks, community services, new roading infrastructure. We are 100% supportive of development contributions and what they do for the city. I guess what we think that's important around ensuring that these are as effective as they can be is that they're based on robust assessments of each development, their actual demand on the council infrastructure, and the ability for the users to actually gain the benefit from those developments. It's important that the process in establishing DCs is transparent and logical, and the airport doesn't particularly believe the square metre HUE rate that has been done in the past is a particularly robust way of doing that. We've got a couple of examples that I'd just like to share with you. A recent development that is currently in construction had an initial DC assessment of $590,000. We reviewed this and knew straight away that that wasn't a fair reflection on that development. Went back to the council and very quickly that dropped to $80,000. $245,000 of this reduction was in roading network charges once we said to them actually the roading network is well established in our area, and the other one related to wastewater charges because we look all that infrastructure is in place and actually we manage the waste that goes out to the council network to not go above our threshold. So a great outcome, but frustrating from the fact that it was done on a square metre rate initially when actually a special assessment should probably be the baseline principle for every development contribution assessment. I think the key thing from our perspective in the general sense as well is that landlords develop these properties for tenants. That's why we develop, because someone needs an asset. Someone needs an asset to potentially grow, employ people, develop goods and services for the region, the country and the world. And we think it's really important that these things are assessed accurately to ensure fair and reasonable allocation of costs to the areas that need them, they have access to them, and or will use them. Quick comment around catchment areas. Looking at the clock, already 2.5 minutes gone. A bit more focused around us. The draft catchment areas, you've got our view. We think they aren't actually particularly well considered, particularly for the airport. We have some quite special positions in terms of how we develop our site, and I've got 5 examples that I'd just like to touch on. The first relates to the neighbourhood park map, where we are labelled as growth, and I just don't think that actually represents the reality. The airport develops properties and invests in our public realm ourselves. Great example of this is our Pocket Park and Agri-Export Precinct, which we've just completed and won an architectural award for FMG the other night. We spend $300,000 on that public realm, and so we actually invest in that ourselves and think that we should have a special provision in the DC's catchment. The next one is stormwater map. At the moment, the draft doesn't appear to capture the special nature of how we invest in our on-site catchment and treatment of stormwater to help replenish the aquifer and make sure it's safe for everyone, so we're keen for you to reflect on that. The road network map highlights CIL land sits in growth. I think if you'd all agree, if you popped out there and had a look at the infrastructure that's there, you might suggest it's actually really well established and ready for development, not needing growth. So we'd like that to be assessed and reviewed. The active and public transport areas show all of CIL-owned land having access to the service. Look, the reality is we only really have access to public transport along Memorial Ave and in and out of the airport. And one of our key areas, Dakota Park, which is growing exceptionally well, has no public transport within 1.5 kilometres, and yet we are still charged for that service, and that doesn't really feel reasonable. Don't get me wrong, if you want to put public transport down there, we're in. And the other one is our sewer storage and pump stations. Just really want to highlight we get charged for infrastructure growth, but The reality is we manage sewer system from a campus perspective, but also a tenant perspective. And our Canterbury Linen Services development is a perfect example where we had a development contribution charge of $137,000, yet we've invested in a storage system on site that makes sure we don't go over our 35 litre a second cap. So in reality, we're not actually burdening the city any further. I better end there because there's 2 seconds.
That actually brings us very neatly to the end of the allotted 5 minutes. So thank you for the written submission, and thank you for coming along and speaking to that this afternoon. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
you.